Welcome back to the Flying with the Flock podcast, the best place to get all of your Eagles and other NFL related news. I'm your host, Matt, and ladies and gentlemen, we have made it through our first NFL preseason game and have moved on to joint practices with the Patriots. And so there is quite a few pieces of Eagles news that we're going to talk about. Before we jump into everything, I do want to apologize. It's going to be a little bit of a weird episode since I am on the road. So it's going to be a little bit shorter. There are certainly less in-depth notes, so you're just going to be getting my harebrained thoughts on what I kind of saw. And hopefully, come time after next Tuesday's open practice, I'll have some more concrete thoughts and evidence to help prove why I believe the Eagles will be successful moving forward into the 2026 regular season. But before we get into all of that, if y'all could leave a like and subscribe down below, that would be much appreciated. If you could also send this to somebody that you might know, might like football, whether it's fantasy football or whether it's just plain old regular X's and O's of football, or just some random Eagles fans' thoughts on how the NFL season is going as a whole, feel free to send this to somebody that you think would enjoy this. Jumping right into it now. So this past weekend was the Eagles preseason game. Eagles preseason, in which they played the Baltimore Ravens. They went down to Maryland and they lost 24-7 against the Ravens. The Eagles, realistically, I'm not even going to give you like the box score stats. A lot of them are, especially on offense, fairly below average. Tanner McKee, Andy Dalton did not play up to snuff whatsoever, with nobody throwing, the only quarterback throwing a touchdown being Cole Payton, the rookie developmental quarterback. And he only went 4 for 9 on the day for 37 yards and 1 touchdown. I mean, he looked more poised in the pocket in this kind of system than Tanner McKee and even Andy Dalton, a guy that has a lot of years under his belt and even in West Coast style offenses. And it was just surprising on how some of these guys just missed wide open players. Like Tanner McKee, there were several passes that were kind of just mallards and just went over top of the receiver's head. Whereas he used to be able to put that ball on the money and drive his team, keep the momentum forward, and stay ahead of the sticks. Now it seems like he's kind of squandering any form of chance that he could have taken to capitalize on the most quarterback reps during the preseason. McKee Andy Dalton played the first quarter, McKee played the second and third, and Cole Payton played the fourth. So Dalton went out there, went 3 and out. In the first 8 drives combined by both McKee and Dalton, the team went, out of the first 8 drives, they went 3 and out in 6 of them and only got 2 first downs in the first 8 drives. So we'll get into why I think that might be, but overall I do think that the plan was to come out with a very vanilla looking offense and just allow the quarterbacks to find a rhythm throughout the game, which almost none of them did. Cole Payton found it at the end to throw for a touchdown to wide receiver Eric Ezukanama. There we go. Normally I have how to pronounce names, but this week not so much. So overall, Cole Payton looked good. He looked better than I thought he would be going out there as a rookie quarterback, but he was also going up against third and fourth stringers, bubble guys on the Ravens roster that they're not sure they're keeping either. So his performance should be taken with a grain of salt, but he's been one of the only quarterbacks outside of Jalen Hurts this entire training camp stretch so far that hasn't been afraid to be aggressive and push the ball downfield, which is exactly the tempo that this offense is looking for. We'll get back into my thoughts about the overall offense, the scheme, and where I thought they went kind of wrong. Rushing, we'll get back to that because that more ties into the scheme. Defense-wise, I mean, it was okay. There was nothing like there was a couple people that played pretty well. AJ Epinesa proved that he could be a solid veteran depth piece off the corner. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. has proved that if Jahad Campbell even slips up enough to give Vic Fangio the chance to start Trot, he's going to take it and run away with it at this point. Trotter Jr., I think, was the best player out there on defense during the entire game. You can make the argument of Epinesa, in my opinion, but I think it's either Trot or Epinesa were the best defensive players. Jahad Campbell got some starts. Somebody who looked good and really needed a good-looking game to not cement himself, but to improve his stance with the team was the second-year defensive tackle Ty Robinson. He had, I think, 1 sack, but he used a lot of his strength, his God-given ability, and he just went out there and he kind of balled. He's been quite quiet until a little bit recently during training camp. So to see a guy like that come out here and the lights are on him, ball out when it matters most, at least for him and his position on the roster, I think that was a pretty good outing. Now, if he can do that again the second game and the third game, we could talk about having Ty Robinson be on the 53-man roster because he's earned the spot compared to guys that had an iffy outing, like a guy like Gabe Hall, who's a veteran defensive tackle who barely did anything. That also brings me to 2 guys on the defense that I wanted to point out. One playing his first snaps of organized football, the other one improving significantly after finally getting out there on the field, similar to Ty Robinson. That being both Uar Bernard, who played his first game of professional football, and Joshua Weru, who has played football, I believe, back in college, but still had a difficult time adjusting to the NFL speed during training camp. Both gentlemen, part of the NFL Pathway program. I've talked about them in the past, especially Uar Bernard. But both gentlemen were fairly impressive when they went out there with the third-team defense, and they kind of stood out. When guys like Trot and Epinesa and Ty Robinson weren't exactly out there as much anymore with reps, Uar Bernard and Joshua Weru both stepped up. I mean, where's Uar Bernard's stats? Oh, he's somewhere here. Come on. Okay, Joshua Weru only had 1 registered tackle, but he had a QB hit, and he had a lot of pressure on the quarterback. He was able to get into that backfield as early and often, and he made his presence felt. Where's Uar Bernard? He was right here, wasn't he? Did he not register? I thought he at least registered a tackle. I guess not. But his pressure was felt when he was driving the guard and the center back into the quarterback's lap. His presence was felt on that defensive line, especially when you do not have well-known guys playing alongside him. He could have prevented a touchdown, but I will say that's not entirely his fault, due to the fact that the center pulled his body and was kind of holding his arm, so he would have had to make an arm tackle, and I think a guy like Uar Bernard, who has never played professional football in his life, that would be fairly difficult to do on the basically 1 or 2 yard line, is make that arm tackle and trip up the back. But all those guys that I just mentioned, the AJ Epinesa, the Jeremiah Trot Jr., the Ty Robinson, the Joshua Weru, the Uar Bernard, all kind of gave me optimism for the depth pieces that we have on this roster. I know there are guys like, there are injured guys right now. I completely understand that. and we'll talk about the offense, and their injured guys here in a second. But the defense overall, when it came to the scheme, they knew what they were doing. It just seemed like they weren't able to bring it up to NFL speed. I do question when Vic Fangio dropped AJ Epinesa back into coverage on a wheel route against a running back. That's not really the best idea. Sometimes his defenses do that. I mean, that's why Hassan Reddick struggled back in 2023 during that makeshift Vic Fangio defense, was because he is not good in coverage, and he was in coverage a lot. So, to me, I do think it's kind of hard to say how the overall defensive unit would look and we'll talk about joint practice here in a little bit against the Patriots, because that happened a few hours ago, because I'm getting to this episode later than I would. I mean, it'll be up the same time for you guys, like 6:30 p.m., but for me, I only got a couple hours to record, maybe like 2 hours to record this and upload it so it's on time. But the defense, I'm not as concerned with. I believe in this unit, especially the defensive line, will take that step forward under a dominant Jalix Hunt and Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter triple threat until Jonathan Grenard is able to get his footing back under him, coming off of injury. And I do believe that the linebacking core is going to be an interesting thing to watch develop, especially with the battle between Jihad Campbell and Jeremiah Trotter Jr. I do believe so far, to me, Trot has looked the cleanest out of the two linebackers, but Vic Fangio even spoke on this today during pre-joint practice interview. He's putting more of an emphasis on getting Jihad out there for reps, so he can just get the feeling of being in there with the ones, moving again, because he played really solid when he was called upon last season when Nakobe Dean was out with injury early in the season. But then he never really got the ability to get back out there on the field, and I felt like it could have been good development for him to play alongside Zach Bond, maybe an extra 2 to 4 games, and allow Nakobe Dean to come in later in the season so he's 110%. Did that happen? No, obviously. Jihad Campbell is still a really solid player. I think that eventually, if he does not play up to expectations this season and Vic Fangio is not happy where his abilities are at, we could see the chance that Jeremiah Trotter Jr. Comes in a lot more often for Jihad Campbell to play alongside Zach Bond. But we're just going to have to wait and see. That's just my theory so far. Now, when it comes to the offense during that preseason game, finally looping back so we can wrap up this preseason section here. To me, there was a lot more positive than I think people were giving the offense. People like Eli Stowers appeared on the box score. He had 3 receptions for 12 yards. Look, it's not a lot, and we're going to talk about. Let's talk about Eli Stowers now before we get into the entire offense. Eli Stowers, to me, has a good shot at being what the Rams did for their rookie tight end. Let me look at Rams tight ends. What's his name? I can see his face. It's their backup tight end. Is it Terrence Ferguson? No, it's not Terrence Ferguson. Is it? Okay, hold on. Excuse me. Yeah, you can see how scatterbrained I am today. Let's see. Is it Colby? It was. Wasn't Colby Parkinson? Damn, I'm striking out here, guys. 2025 Rams tight ends. I think it was Terrence Ferguson was a really solid piece who had only 231 yards, receiving yards, and only 11 receptions, but 3 touchdowns. So he was just used as that backup receiving tight end, allowing the more veteran tight ends to either block or get open and draw some attention towards them by the linebackers. We could see a similar role being taken up by Eli Stowers this year, where he takes a back seat to both Dallas Goedert and Johnny Munt, and he's a third tight end in different packages. He comes in and he can be a solid option in the flat or running a tiny route that the quarterback can once over. So to me, I think that overall, Eli Stowers, this is a really good start for him. It's going to take a little bit more to impress me, obviously, but 3 receptions for 12 yards is not a bad start for any rookie, and especially being third most in receiving yards and most in receptions. I think Pro Football Focus had him ranked as the worst player in that game, and he was certainly not even close. He looked even good in the running game. His blocking skills have significantly improved since his time in college. So, to me, I think Eli Stowers can be a solid, underrated piece, but he's not going to make as much noise as I think most Eagles fans would hope in his rookie season as a second-round pick. So the running scheme was fairly good. It was a lot of wide zone runs, so they're running to the outside of the tackles, so either to the left or to the right, and they're riding the wave. So what that means is that the center, or normally it's the center, is pulled. He goes to the right or left, depending on which guard he's riding towards. He goes up, he blocks the linebacker, and that allows the running back to make a choice of continuing to go to the wider zone on the outside of the tackle or splitting the tackle and then now pulled up center who's creating a pathway. So we saw a lot of that in this preseason game, and that's kind of what this offense is about. It's a lot of wide zone run. It's marrying the run to the pass, and you have to be able to be mobile as a quarterback to pull off this offense. It looks like we did not see Jalen Hurts run the offense, obviously, but when they were doing a lot of wide zone runs on first and maybe sometimes second down, they would run a bootleg pass out of a play action, and Tanner McKee or Andy Dalton wouldn't be fast enough to kind of roll out because those guys are more pocket passers and not as agile as a guy like a Jalen Hurts or a Cole Payton, who saw a good amount of success running this style of offense. Obviously, we already talked about the other problems that those quarterbacks had, but this offense seems to be fairly suited for a guy like Jalen Hurts, who is willing to run the ball a bit more and seems a little bit more agile coming into this NFL season, a little bit lighter, so he can run to the outside or bootleg, fake, or drop straight back. Doesn't mean that we're not going to have any form of shotgun passes, but you're going to see the majority of what this offense is doing is wide zone runs and play action. Where that starts to go downhill is if the offensive line does not understand the cadence from the quarterback, and then they start drawing penalties, whether it's a false start or they're just not in the right formation, illegal formation, or sometimes the holding penalties can be a lot higher in these styles of offenses because you're constantly running to the side with whoever you're blocking. So it makes it semi-harder to disengage cleanly and not have it look like a hold or you're manhandling the other person. So that's where a lot of this offense kind of was really hurt. And I know Sirianni and Mannion both talked about trying to negate all of the penalties that they were facing. I do think a lot of that was just the quarterbacks not being on the right time and the backup offensive linemen not being on the right time in a game time kind of mode. Yes, they sometimes do situational stuff in training camp, but when you're under those lights, it's a completely different thing. So ultimately, I do think that the offensive struggles came from a lot of that pre-snap penalties and or holding penalties, which some were kind of bogus, but whatever. It's a preseason. I'm not going to complain about it. And so that ultimately put these quarterbacks who were a little bit more stiff, struggled to run a bootleg and play action passes. It kind of made the offense behind the sticks, and then it kind of made it stagnant trying to push the ball forward. I think that's ultimately where this offense failed this week, and it's not the system. I believe it was the quarterbacks running the system that ultimately made it weaker. So that is just my hot take, and I don't think a lot of the receivers were that good. I mean, Darius Cooper looked like a shell of himself. I was expecting a lot more out of Darius Cooper. Britton Covey had a chance to make a name for himself. Hollywood Brown and Elijah Moore were basically absent from the game. I mean, they couldn't catch a cold if it was thrown right to them. So ultimately, those guys were disappointing. So a lot of the receivers were disappointing. You didn't see Dontavian Wicks, Devontae Smith, and Mekhi Lemon are going to be back soon, but they weren't ready for the game. And Tank Bigsby looked fine, but in the receiving game, he definitely was not as crisp as he was in the running game. Running-wise, he looked really solid. I mean, he only had 2 carries for 5 yards, but in those 5 yards, he found a hole in the outside run, and he kind of just exploded through it to get the couple of yards. Will Shipley looked pretty damn good running the ball. 7 carries for 22 yards. I got to give it up to my third-year running back boy, Will Shipley out of Clemson. Obviously, I am a little bit of a Clemson fan, so got to give it up to Shipley here, who I've loved being on the roster since the Super Bowl run in 2024. And Cole Payton had 3 carries for 45 yards. So with a mobile quarterback, we're seeing that this offense runs a lot smoother. With a quarterback that's has a lot more pocket presence, we see that this offense runs a lot smoother. Hopefully some of the weapons start to wake up a little bit. It wasn't even that tight of coverage sometimes. They would just drop the pass. So those are the kind of things. Big one is going to be stopping the penalties as pre-snap and post-snap, stopping the amount of penalties, having our mobile quarterback run an offense that allows him to dictate what he wants to do, whether he wants to run or whether he wants to pass, and also having our receivers be healthy and not having to rely on guys like Britton Covey, Hollywood Brown, and Elijah Moore to catch balls this season. Alright, for this last kind of small segment, I wanted to talk on some of the thoughts that I've received from the Eagles-Patriots joint practice this morning. That spanned from, I think it was like 10:30 to 11 for warm-ups, 11 till 12:30 for reps. And it's fair to say from the clips that I've seen, this was a fairly even affair. Both offenses look good. Both defenses look shaky enough that it kind of was concerning. The only player on the defense that looked 110% was Jalix Hunt, and you can make the argument Quinyon Mitchell as well. The defense looked okay. Let's get into the defense. There are quite a few clips going around of A.J. Brown versus Quinyon Mitchell. The first one that went out, Quinyon Mitchell was able to break up the pass. The second one that went out and was posted by a lot of Patriots social media accounts was one of a grab over the shoulder grab by A.J. Brown against Quinyon Mitchell. But it should be of note that if you actually look at the video and watch Drake Maye, he had Jalix Hunt in his face. So he kind of just threw it up and had a prayer, and that most likely would have been a sack or a deflected or a batted ball in an actual game. So I just want to put that out there. They're both sides, both Eagles and Patriots fans, because of the animosity recently, will be posting, not edited, but will be posting some videos and pictures that make themselves look good. So don't buy into everything. Try to find the bigger picture when it comes to the videos and such, and see who really won the rep. Was it the Eagles defense? Was it the Patriots offense? Or vice versa? Was it the Eagles offense? Or was it the Patriots defense? But both teams' offenses, I've heard, looked good. Drake Maye and A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts and his litany of misfit wide receivers all look good today. Jalen Hurts looked poised in the pocket during today's practice, which is a good sign for this offense, especially with not having guys like Devontae Smith and Mekhi Lemon, who could both be back soon. Both receivers were listed as limited today. Devontae has been listed as limited the past couple of days, and so there's a good chance that we could see him by the end of this week, maybe in a walkthrough, working out with Jalen Hurts. Well, he's already been working out with Jalen Hurts after practices, but it's been like light and stuff. So that's nice to see. And Mekhi Lemon has been working out with Jalen Hurts after practices as well, especially with red zone drills. So that's also been nice to see. Both Smith and Lemon have been out for over 2 weeks with a hamstring injury, which to me doesn't seem that long, but looking back at it, it actually has been a decent bit since we've seen either of them take like reps with pads on in an offense or in a situational practice thing. I'm forgetting the name, but a situational practice thing. So it would be nice to see one of the two gentlemen be ready by the end of this week, which will probably be Devontae Smith, and having Lemon ready for next week, picking up a lot of his workload heading into the final preseason game and the final couple of weeks before we head into the first week of the NFL season. So the offense for both teams looked good. Defense looked shaky at times, but supposedly, according to both Patriots and Eagles insiders there at practice, the Eagles defense did look a little bit better than the Patriots defense, though it's kind of hard to say. It's all subjective. Like I said, Drake Maye made a good pass to A.J. Brown over Quinyon Mitchell, but Jalix Hunt was in his face. So would that have been a sack? Would he have been able to get off the ball? It's hard to say. I'm not going to say whether the Patriots or the Eagles won this practice. A lot of reporters have said that it was quite even with how both teams performed, which is kind of what I'm looking for. Again, Patriots, all due respect, were in the Super Bowl this past season. So there should not be any disrespect. They are the reigning AFC champions. Drake Maye was an MVP runner-up. So they have a lot of talent there. They have some experience now of getting to the Super Bowl. Now they have to get back. That's always the issue. But we'll talk about that when we do our predictions for the regular season. But overall, I do think that both teams have looked solid today. They were even. Both defenses looked shaky. Both offenses looked consistent in their pass game. The Eagles' scheme is starting to come together. And Jalen Hurts is using his veteran presence in the pocket to manipulate guys in the secondary. Let me just put it out there. The latest Eagles upload on all their social media accounts where it's the quarterback camera on Jalen Hurts' helmet. He manipulates Zach Bond using his eyes and then throws into a tight window in the red zone for Dallas Goedert. So realistically, it's hard to say which way that a lot of these plays are going, or what these guys are seeing, or what these teams are even working on. I know the Eagles are still trying to get some stuff installed in their offense. They're waiting for a guy like Mekhi Lemon to come back so they can start installing even more based around him. But it's going to have to be... We're going to have to wait to see how things kind of shake out. Maybe the Eagles have a better day than the Patriots tomorrow. Maybe the Patriots have a better day than the Eagles tomorrow. I hope not, because I know Patriots fans, and they would probably not let me hear the end of it. But overall, everything is subjective. If you go out there on social media and watch videos, unless it's like the helmet camera, where you can clearly see what's going on and hear what Jalen Hurts is saying, everything can be taken with a grain of salt, okay? For both Eagles fans and Patriots fans, I know we want to go at each other. Trust me, I do too. I completely understand. But we need to take our time. Just allow our guys to go after somebody different than what they've been doing in training camp, which is, I know, what a lot of guys have been saying during their post-game or post-practice press conferences, is that it's nice to go up against somebody different. But overall, I think that we just need to give both these offenses some time to develop. Allow Drake May to develop more of his chemistry with his new wide receivers. And allow the Eagles to install this new offense so it looks 100%. Alright, that's kind of it for this episode. I do apologize. Again, next week I will have a longer episode with more thoughts. I will be at the open practice on Tuesday, August 25th. So if you are there, give me a shout. And if not, I will be back here with more of my thoughts, my in-person thoughts with this Eagles offense and what they're doing, especially with the first team. Not as worried with the second team and such when it comes to this to the open practice. More concerned with how this first team offense is looking. So that's it. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And remember, go Birds.